Hello everyone, I meet the most interesting people right here on Duval Street. It is incredible. I sit here all night and all day and I talk to the rock stars, the heroes and the gods. That's what I do.
Yeah. And he himself is a god.
Yeah, well, I don't know about that.
God of pizzas.
Yeah, maybe. Well, no, I am the Earl of Pizza.
Oh.
And this is the #1 pizza shop show on the internet. Just want to throw that out there. So tonight, boys and girls, I'm not going to waste no time because we're going to get into it with this young lady. I want you to introduce yourself to the world. Tell everybody your name and where you're from.
Everybody wants to sit with Kit.
My name is Margaret Romero, and I was born and raised right here on the island of Key West. I'm a native.
Wow, you are a
Fifth
true
generation.
True Conch. 5 generations?
Yeah.
And where do they come from?
On my mother's side of the family, from Oriente province in Cuba, and my dad's side of the family from the base of the Pyrenees Mountains in Spain.
From where?
Pyrenees Mountains, at the base of those mountains over in Spain.
In Spain? The Pyrenees Mountains in Spain?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's...
Didn't expect that, did you?
I wasn't sure. You know, I mean, most of the conchs have a Cuban, a Bahama, or a Spanish.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
In fact, the story behind my dad's side of the family is that he was actually a Spanish sailor, and he chose not to go back to Spain, even though his mother pleaded with him by letter to come back to Spain, and he said, no, I'm staying in Key West. And that was back the mid-1800s.
The mid-1800s.
Yeah.
So your family's been here since the mid-1800s. Was that pre-Civil War?
Oh, you're asking me.
Yeah?
No,
that's a long time back.
It was a long time back. They've been here for years. And the first recorded birth that we can prove over at St. Paul's Church is 1851.
It's 1851? Wow. So, you've been here your whole life, 5 generations. Does it seem like the island has changed tremendously in those 45 years?
The island has changed, and he's being nice, folks, when he says 45 years. I was born and raised here. I went away to college and I got a degree in mathematics. I had hoped to come back and teach here, but that didn't work out, and I ended up teaching for a while, and then I did over about 30 years with corporate IBM. But I'm home because I want to be home, and I love it here. Has the area changed? Well, when I was a girl growing up here, my father's shop was a General Electric dealership literally 1 block away from where we're sitting tonight.
So
Sloppy Joe's was here.
We're at 208. So your dad had a GE shop on the 100 block, which is
the 100 block across the street.
On the odd side.
Right. And down at the end of the road was the Mardi Gras and the Havana Madrid.
The Mardi Gras and the Havana Madrid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Good times.
Oh boy.
Good times.
So it is funny because I've only been here less than 40 years. And when I moved here, I didn't think there was 1 inch of ground to be built upon.
Oh,
and boy, have
they proven you wrong.
Just on Duval Street.
Well,
I mean, just on Duval Street, I've seen a dozen buildings.
Across the street was a big beer distributorship.
Parking lot, Lopez, the Budweiser distributorship.
Right?
Now, for those that are wondering, that's now Irish Kevin's. That was a parking lot.
Right across from where we're sitting was a bank.
The Key West Bank.
Key West Bank.
Yep.
Down at the end of the block was First National Bank.
First National Bank.
I might not be 22 anymore, but I remember what was here.
Yeah. And let me ask you this. What is still here that was here when you were a kid?
The community and people caring for each other. People that are really...
That's a great answer.
I'm going to say, really, what's still here.
Well,
and people who choose to be here and work and live here.
You heard that? Because that's the central theme of my show, is I try to introduce people to who I call rock stars and heroes and gods of Key West. And there's a central theme. Everybody that's here is here because they want to be here.
Yeah.
There's an occasional military kid that'll sit down with me, and they're here on deployment because they have to be.
Yes,
but even
no.
those kids can choose sometimes. They can. And it's amazing how many of them return back
It's amazing. I find with our military families,
Yep.
either when I was growing up or as it is today, they either love it or hate it. There
Right.
are a number of people who have retired from the military and come back here, and this is home to them.
Huge.
Absolutely.
Well, now most of those marry a Conch girl.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. But no,
at night-
it's a great community, and I say the thing that people who are really consider this home,
Yeah.
they don't have to say, oh, we're one human family. They live it. They don't care
Yeah.
whether it's military or a particular race or religion or a gender. They care about their fellow person,
Well-
and they do it quietly without fanfare.
You know, I'm going to interrupt you on this right here because one of the things that I noticed immediately when I moved here in 1985 was how about a third of the island was white, and the other third was Hispanic or black. So there was I didn't really see a majority of one color or the other, and I didn't really find that anybody really cared what color you were.
Growing up, we
so
didn't.
It always amazes to me, and I don't watch TV anymore. I gave that up about 10 years ago, at how people keep pushing all these mantras about race this or race that, and it's like, what the hell is your problem? You know, get a life. I mean, in Key West, you just treat everybody like your neighbor because we pretty much are, and you know you're going to see them if you treat them wrong.
And
you're
if
gonna
you do
see 'em.
something bad, they'll go home and tell your mama.
Yeah, and you know, it's just so amazing how this community works, and you just think, why can't the rest of the world just be like us?
Do you want me to tell you something my grandma, I don't know where you want me to look, but...
Yeah, look anywhere you want.
Okay. My grandmother, when I came back for a weekend from college, and I brought a lot of my friends with me, and we were here for a big party over what we called the BOQ, which was Bachelor Officer Quarters. And my grandmother was talking to one of the girls who was visiting from France, and she says, everybody smiles at you here when you walk the streets.
Yeah.
It's different than Miami, where we were going to college. And she says, Miss Gatto, why is that? She goes, well, honey, we're an island. And she goes, well, what does that have to do with it? She says, when you live on an island, you kind of become involved with your community because all you have to depend on is your neighbors. Because when my grandmother was a little girl, the railroad had not even come to town yet. It was basically steamers and wreckers and boats.
Right.
And my grandmother explained that if you are with a seafaring or island community, if someone has a large yacht and it's stuck out on the shoals and somebody's going by in a rowboat that's been out getting conch shells or bait fish, he'll go and row over to the yacht and say, hey, can I take one of your people in, or can I bring you back apart?
Yeah.
So there's the little guy helping the big guy.
Yeah.
And similarly, if you see somebody who has lost an oar or his engine is broken down on a small skiff, and there's
Right.
a big, mega yacht going by, they will stop and say, hey, get on board. Let us take you to know where you're going.
Right.
It's that whole seafaring mentality. You don't leave somebody stranded
You
at
know,
sea. And it made so much sense when I heard her explaining that to one of my college roommates.
Yeah, I never quite know how to explain it to people, but we don't really see things in the same shade of that the rest of the world is trying to preach. We don't subscribe to that. We don't buy into it, and it's just we just kind of, like you said earlier, the one human family. Most of us don't really say that saying because we don't have to.
Exactly.
It's a great bumper sticker.
It's a great bumper sticker, and some people use it as a platitude to get what they want.
Sure.
But you could be sitting at a dinner table, and you could have a military Coast Guardsman that just got here, and he happened to get invited to dinner, sitting along with a retired chairman of the board from AT&T.
Sure.
And nobody would know the difference who was who.
Nope. That, and I learned that
True
really,
story.
I learned that my first month in Key West, sitting down next to people that turned out to be rather large in life here and other places. And one of my favorites was upstairs on the balcony of Rick's, midnight, random summer night, nobody around, and all of a sudden a guy comes up and he's all out of breath, and he's like, yeah, they're after me. They're looking for me. I'm like, hey, man, you're in QS. You can calm down now. You can just chill out. And he's like, no. He goes, no, they're after me. They're after me. And I go, oh, okay, whatever you say. And it wasn't 10 seconds. Out of the darkness came about 10 guys, had this man on the ground, cuffed and down the stairs. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? Well, he had committed about 4 murders and stolen about 3 cars, one of which was a Cadillac parked on Whitehead Street. He had robbed a bank and had $20,000 in cash and 4 or 5 firearms in the back. And yeah, they were after him, and yeah, they did want him, and he was right. And I had no idea. I was just like, another whack job. But he was a whack job, all right, but he was correct.
Well, and
you just never know.
That's something a lot of what I will call people who can't go elsewhere because there's paparazzi all around. People we always found that were locals with certain television stars, actors and actresses, people in large business positions, those people could walk around.
Right.
And the only people who would have said, oh, look, there's so-and-so, were the people who were visiting. The locals left them around.
This changed it. This has changed it. But I say that to people all the time. You know, I've met so many people here, and I don't have 2 photographs of any of them. You know.
So true.
And the reason why is because just respectful. You know, I did get Jack Nicholson's autograph, but I had his picture on the wall, so I had to get his autograph. But you know, Bill and Hillary, you know, tons of heads of states, athletes out the wazoo, rock stars, you name it. Alice Cooper, if you're out there, we still want to interview you. But you know, Steven Tyler sat here one night, Vince Neil. I can go on and on and on, and I don't have literally 2 pictures.
In other words, like my photographer friend would say to me, Margaret, you should have gotten a picture. That's the only way you can prove it happened.
Yeah,
but you don't, because you respect them and they respect you even more because they're just talking to you as Kit. They're not talking to you as the fan that's hounding them. They want to know where to go eat. Where can I go get a good particular drink? That's all they want.
And there's been a couple of them that I've literally, you know, hung out with for more than an hour. More than once I've hung out with these couple of these people 5 or 6 hours, you know, either having a drink, going to get something to eat, coming back and having some more drinks, and just basically being
Kit, and they're being themselves.
Yeah, you know, well, often when that's happened, it's somebody that's by themselves, and they're of a notoriety. But if no one pays attention, they can float under, and nobody pays. And not that I'm that guy, but whenever we're hanging out, it's just suddenly one of my friends, and they don't care who it is.
That's right.
You know, it's like, oh, you're with Kit. Oh, okay, and then they don't ask another question.
Exactly.
Which I'm fine. You know, that's good. But this island is special in the fact that people are here because they want to be here.
They're here, and there are a lot of people that return. I happen to be an usher at St. Mary's Church here, and you don't know how many people come back year after year after year, and they come back for the camaraderie they happen to feel there. And I think that is true with a couple of the other, what I'm going to call religious denominations here on the island.
Right.
I mean, how many other places do you know where we have what they call a grotto there? And it becomes the non-denominational grotto in a hurricane. Even the agnostics go there to pray. It's like the community goes there to join in talking to a higher power, whatever name they give that higher power, to protect us from hurricanes. It's a real community place. It's not just the place that's on the Catholic property.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have you been to, I know one time we were in high school. One of our good friends got married shortly after high school. She happened to live in what's now called Bahama Village.
Yep.
And we were the only 2 people of much lighter skin at that wedding. And all of a sudden we looked around and we said, oh, now we know what they feel like when they go to our weddings.
Yeah.
But you know what? But we were there because she was our friend and nobody cared.
Right. Yeah.
That's just the way it was. It still is a lot with the people who really want this to be home.
You know what? To change the subject, kind of, sort of.
Okay.
You know what I miss right now in our culture that we don't have? I miss the fact that we don't embrace everyone's difference. It seems like we were at this great place in society 8, 10, 12 years ago where we celebrated your differences, whether it's cultural, sexual orientation, but we didn't demand that you become me or praise me or put me on a pedestal of something, and we weren't trying to all be alike. We were actually at a very sweet spot, I thought, in our culture where we just all celebrated, enjoyed whatever you're bringing to the party.
In other words, we tried to make the rest of the world like Key West. And then, I mean, even down here, we have some people who've come here and, we've come here because of this, that, or the other. And within a year or two, they're complaining because it's not like where they came from. True story?
I hear it all the time.
True story.
That's just.
And you know what? After a few more years, they sell their house, they make their investment, and they leave, and we go, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
I did kind of start this conversation earlier by going, what's changed in this town since you?
What's changed in this town? We have more people who have bought properties here, who have done it strictly for the investment, and they think they're special and they're entitled because they have graced us with their presence. I find some more of that because if you take like an Ernest Hemingway, his kids went to school with my family.
Right.
You take Tennessee Williams.
Yeah.
Nobody even knew he lived in the neighborhood.
Right. Well, it's funny because all, as I call them, the ne'er-do-wells, they'll appreciate that. They think that they're doing something great, and they realize, and they know that all they're doing is for themselves. They're not doing it for this community at all. And when they try to get involved, it's self-serving. They're not trying to help us out at all. They're doing something that they think is great.
Let me give you an example.
It is changing our community.
Let me give you an example. Just recently, I was very proud to be able to help our local Key West High School band, who was invited to go to perform in the London New Year's Day parade.
Yep.
I would tell you that probably 90% of that money came from locals. Some gave 5 figures.
Yep.
Some saw the kids out washing cars and just stopped to give them money because they saw people working towards a goal for the good of the community. They saw people trying to help them because they were trying to help themselves, so everybody pitched in. And I'm so proud to say our city raised $400,000 for those kids to go to Europe and represent us. And they were so proud to do it. It was wonderful.
Yep. And that is a shining example of community right there.
Right there,
And I don't mean to preach, but the band of all people get the least amount of money of all the extracurricular activities. They get the short end of the stick.
Those kids washed a lot of cars, and if there was a yard sale, those kids were there at 6 o'clock in the morning to help us put stuff out.
And I know the band director spent a lot of hours trying desperately to get the money together to go to get those kids over there and get home. And that's quite a logistics thing. Just going is one thing, but then feeding them and making sure that they're
making sure nobody strays off or gets lost.
That's
how about
huge.
trying to get all those instruments across the ocean so their instruments were there for them to play? Big logistics, but they had a lot of parents. They had a lot of former parents. They had a lot of people that would stop and say, "Oh, my son used to be in the band in Arkansas, and we want to help out."
Well,
and that's what makes us whole.
I saw them some down here. I wish they would have come down here a little more, but there was a few different times where I saw 2 or 3 of the kids. They would come down and play a little ensemble thing together, and I really liked it. I wish they would have done more of it. I wish they'd do more of it more often.
They still had to go home and do homework.
Yeah, right. But I wish they would do it year-round.
We can probably suggest that and hope that maybe they get an invite to go somewhere else.
I would like for them for their presence to not just be because we're trying to go to London, but we're we're trying to.
Do you know that they typically have 3 concerts a year, and they did a spectacular one before Christmas?
Yeah.
Where they had the jazz band,
Right.
they had the percussion band, they had what they call the symphonic band,
Oh, yeah.
which are the younger people in the band who don't really get to march and be part of it. They're
yeah.
kind of like in their learning years.
Well, that's-
they had like 4 different groups within the band, and it was
Yeah.
amazing to see how many of those kids played multiple instruments.
Sure. That it,
They're phenomenal. I mean, I'm so proud of them.
there's so much to be said for those kids, and
The kids and their parents.
Right,
Because
and,
everybody was in it.
they do come up short often whenever it comes time to get funding, but that's all right. They'll learn.
They'll
and,
get there.
It'll get better.
And they'll learn how to pass this on to their kids.
Sure. And I'm glad they went to London and I all came back safe, and I didn't hear any stories about anything going wrong, so it must have been.
They had a wonderful experience. They went to shows over there. They went to Oxford. They actually had the tours and actually got to see and be around the Queen's Jewels. The mayors of London, which I've learned there are, I think, 24 districts in London with 24 mayors. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
Even up and down the Keys. And
Wow.
those folks really treated our folks wonderfully.
That's great.
Absolutely
That's awesome.
wonderful. They
Well-
helped put it all together.
Can't say enough about those kids and the band, and Gary's
Those
done
kids,
a
the
great job.
teamwork they do. You think of sports and you think of teamwork. But
Right.
there was also a lot of teamwork within that band and dependence on
tons.
each other. It's
Tons,
I could talk
tons.
about them all night.
As
And I
well.
don't have any kids in the band
well,
either.
So, in full disclosure, I was a little band kid myself.
you were a band geek.
I was.
Okay.
And it's funny because there's a certain stigma that goes with it. And I always laugh. I go, that wasn't the way it was in my school. And everybody goes, oh, pardon the expression, oh, the band geeks. And it's like, yeah, not in my school. My school, it was totally different. And everybody always goes, really? And then to throw on that story, one of my classmates who was a few years younger than me came into town a few years back. And she had her son and 2 of his friends that were on the football team. Well, she was in the band with me. And she comes in and she introduces me to them and she goes, hey, I want you to do something. I go, sure, what you want me to do? She goes, tell my kids who was the cool kids in school when we were there. And I go, what do you mean, the cool kids, like the band? And she goes, yeah, see? And they're like, yeah, well, we're the football. I go, I don't know how we got off on this subject. We
the
went down
community
a
and
deep
teamwork
rabbit hole on that one.
and the fact that there's still
So let's go this. Were
Thanks.
you in the band when you were in high school?
No, we didn't have a band. I went to
No?
a smaller Catholic school.
So did you
I
go
was
to?
on the cheerleading squad and performed in the senior play.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And what school did you graduate from?
I
Did you-
graduated from Mary Immaculate
Mary
High School.
Immaculate?
Right.
And that was still a school up until what year? When did it stop
I'm
being
going
a
to
high
say the early 80s.
82, 83, maybe 80.
Round about then. And the reason why was our schools were always accredited.
Yeah.
And when there started to be more technology and more science and more requirements,
Right.
and the enrollment was dropping. And so it was decided, as for a financial matter, that it wasn't feasible. But everybody is real excited because right now that grouping of schools has got a waiting list of over 200 kids, and we will have 9th and 10th grade as a high school again this year, and we're going to get back to a 4-year high school.
Well, I know that when I first moved here, I think they had just kind of integrated or stopped having a high school. I think they were still K through 8 or something like
Well, when this all originally started way back when in the 1800s,
that. Yeah.
we had a school for the children from what is now the Bahama Village. That
Right.
was St. Francis. That was kind of in the middle of the block. That was up through 8th grade. We had the boys' school, which was up through 8th grade. That was St. Joseph's. On that same corner lot, there was the NCCS Hall, which was kind of like the National Catholic Community Center that a lot of the servicemen and women came to enjoy their time off.
Right.
And then we had what was called the convent, which was originally grades 1 through 8, and we actually had boarders from South America that were boarders and lived on the property.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the top floor of what's the auditorium.
Wow.
One time we had 50, 60 boarders there, and
Wow.
they
I
came
had
up
no
from
idea about
Latin
that.
America And they had their own dining room. They were chaperoned, and
Wow.
they actually came up here. And then the high school was, of course, 9 to 12, and that's where I graduated from.
Wow.
At one point, we had a football team, not a big one, but we had one. We always had baseball. We had basketball,
Right.
and it's getting back to that.
How many students did you graduate with?
34.
34.
34 in my senior class.
So in my class, I went to a small school too, and when we were talking about the band, there was 35 of us. So they put us all in one class. So that's part of why we ran the school, is because
because you had to practice. You had to have all your rehearsals.
we were all together from the 8th grade all the way through. Well, once we got into high school, we had to take different classes, but we all had the same homeroom. We were all together for so much that we were into everything. I mean, a lot of us.
And you got good memories too.
I mean, some of us tried to do track, and a couple of people tried to do a couple of other sports, up until they couldn't do it anymore. But we were very involved. But small schools are kind of interesting like that.
They are, and I don't regret 1 minute of it.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, you didn't get lost in the crowd.
You didn't get lost in the crowd. It
No.
doesn't mean that it didn't have its own groups and everything else, but a lot of us are still friends with each other today,
Right. Isn't that
whether they're
amazing?
here or somewhere else.
Right.
There's just that certain camaraderie. And again, it didn't matter if
No.
your folks were the wealthiest or if
Not
they
at
were the
all.
cleaning people at the school. Didn't make any difference. It truly did not.
No one really cared.
We were there to get an education, and our parents told us we were going to learn.
And I'm going to digress back into that subject a little bit about nobody cared, and we all cared about each other, but we didn't care what your house looked like or what your parents did necessarily.
And that included our military friends. I mean, it didn't matter.
But and you used an analogy about being a seafaring town, and I think part of it also is being on that island. You are remote, and you are remote, so you only have the resources that can get here or what you have. And every hurricane, we all realize just how close we are, and how little we have. And the biggest thing we have is each other.
Well,
That's our biggest resource.
And I think you'll find in a lot of neighborhoods the feeling, and when I say locals, that doesn't mean somebody who was born and raised here. Because
No.
there were people who were moved here 5 or 6 years ago or 20 years ago who I consider locals. Because
Sure.
this is their community. This is their
Yeah.
home.
Right.
And they're just as proud of it as I am. And you find the really older neighborhoods, you weren't in your neighbor's business all the time, but you were there if they needed something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good thing.
It is a great thing.
Look at us here talking tonight. We didn't know each other 10 years ago.
Have we known each other 10 years?
I think so.
Huh?
Maybe not.
I don't know. I can't really remember when I first met you.
I don't know either.
You know what? I can tell you.
We can probably figure
I can
it
tell you
out.
exactly when I met her.
Uh-oh.
And I'm not going to get political, but the city hall is literally behind Sloppy Joe's. And you were a city commission hawk.
Yeah, I was. Community activist, they
you'd only
called
been
us.
back in town for a minute.
Yeah.
And you were very concerned as to what was going on in your community that you grew up in.
And I was also going to all the school board meetings and the mosquito control meetings.
And so she would come in here and have dinner.
You're right.
And then go over to the
come
city
over and have the
commission
best pizza in town.
meeting. And that's how I first met you.
I think you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
I know that's how it was. I remember.
Yeah,
I
I'd
know.
come over and buy pizza.
Yep. And you'd always come tell me what was going on. Keep me updated.
Well, at least I'd give you my opinion of what was going on and what I thought needed to be changed.
I was a dishwasher stuck to a dough mixer or a sink, and I wasn't paying that close of attention. So I needed somebody for guidance, and you would always give me a little idea of what was going on in the community. what was going on around.
And I was also very free to give you my opinion of it
Sure.
if you wanted to hear it.
Hey, and listen, that's part of this show. Is I want to hear everybody's opinion on things. I'm not going to shy away from your opinion. I'm not going to not like you because it's your opinion.
Oh, darn.
And I'm not going to necessarily judge you because of your opinion. I'll judge you on something completely different, but it won't be your
You'll decide if
opinion.
you like my sweater or not tonight.
Well, she did knit that sweater.
Can you tell we get along?
Yes, exactly. Well, so here's something that I want to throw out there to you, because I know Tim is my producer's pacing back and forth, wanting to know what's going on over here. But I know that I've probably got about 10 chapters to go through with you, and we're on like chapter 1.5.
Okay.
So I would love to have you come back again some other time,
Be happy to.
and let's continue more of whatever. But
I'm game.
I really want to encourage older conchs or older locals to come and tell me stories and remind us of how this place is still charming, but how the charm was back when, and remind us of what we have here, because I think that's a portion of this show, is just to capture the place and time.
Okay.
And I would love for you to come back and tell me some more stories.
And I will do like I did tonight. We'll do it just right off the top of my head, and we'll just roll as we go.
It's funny you mention that, because a lot of people they'll go, yeah, I'd like to do your show, and I go, okay, come by on any Thursday night between the hours of 6 and 9 and sit down and talk to me. Well, what are we going to talk about? And I go, I'm going to talk about your favorite subject. And they always go, well, my favorite subject. I go, yeah, your favorite subject. And they look at me and go, well, what's that? And I go, you.
Right, and I think you can tell the audience, I never said to you, what are we going to talk about?
No, you never did. You're one of the few.
Prepared?
A lot of people,
I'll show up.
A lot of the people, that's their first say, well, I don't know what we're going to talk about. And I'm like, we're going to talk about you. We're going to talk about Key West and pizza. How hard is that?
Hey, I like mine Hawaiian. You know that.
Well, she beat me to the punchline.
Sorry about that, but I really do like his ham and pineapple pizzas called Hawaiians.
Well, I end my show by asking you, if you were a pizza, what kind of pizza would you be?
Your staff knows. I don't even have to. It's like, hi guys, can I have a slice of pizza?
If Johnny,
you want your usual? Absolutely.
Or Mikey D, or Andre, or Marco, or Kyle don't make you a Hawaiian slice, they're dead.
And it's always perfect.
Because them boys know what to make you by now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, she'd be a Hawaiian pizza if you're wondering. That is her favorite lunch or dinner.
And lots of times that was all I'd had for lunch or dinner that day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Margaret, I truly, truly thank you for your time tonight.
Oh, I've enjoyed this. Thank you.
And I really want to have you back, and we'll do a whole nother interview on a whole nother set of topics.
We'll go with the flow, and I'm happy to be here.
But I want you to, every time you come back, give me one little caveat of old Key West and things that may not be here anymore that we should know about. And I encourage you to invite any of your friends to stop by and talk to me.
I can do that.
So I appreciate that. Margaret, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
Been a
darling.
wonderful guest. One of my dear friends.
Producer Tim.
Well, yep, producer TV Tim's over there waving at people. But as always, I want to remind everybody to subscribe to my channel, Sit with Kit, and share and like, and please watch as much as you can. But that's all we've got for tonight. I want to thank everybody on behalf of myself, my staff at Angelina's, TV Tim, Jade, and all the crew. Thank you everyone for watching. That's it. Good night.